All right, everybody. We covered strategy number one. Sorry. Let's dig into strategy number two. Now, what we need to understand is how these two kind of work in together. And kind of as I go through this, process here, I want you to understand how you can actually intertwine your cardio and your strength training to create one workout rather than multiple workouts. But learn the basics before you start getting crazy. All right. Let me just tell you that. All right. Learn how to understand, the strength training, proper form, how to do things without hurting yourself, because these days, we know that CrossFit, has come about, and all CrossFit is a combination of strength training and cardio, but you put yourself at risk if you don't know what you're doing. And for those who do understand the concepts of, how to lift weights properly with good form, then you can get a little bit more advanced into those programs. But let's talk about cardio, and then we'll talk about how we can work them in together. Cardio. Not many people like this word, and I'm one of them. Cardio, pretty much is a term used to say, let's go running. But in this case, it's not really about running. It's really about putting some intensity to your workouts and creating some workouts that can only last, 15, 20 minutes at a time, because it's more or less about intensity rather than duration, right? So let's talk about what intensity and then what duration means, right? So intensity equals effort. And what I mean by that is the harder you go, the more effort you put into it, the more intense the workout is going to be. And to kind of give you an example, let's say you're going down the road and you start off walking, and then you go into a sprint for 30 seconds. That's intense. Okay, a walk is a little bit off on the low intense, and you have sprints that are higher intense. Now, everyone's level of current activity is going to be different. So the way we bring this into your life is going to be different. So for someone who's just now starting to work out, hasn't worked out in 10 years, I'm not going to ask you to go sprint. No, we're going to figure out a way to increase the intensity, because you, a person who hasn't worked out in 10 years, getting off your butt and walking, that's pretty high intense compared to an athlete who has been working out for 10 years. They need to go harder and sprint longer, because that's going to give them that boost, because they are in better shape. They are able to do more in shorter amount of time. So just understand intensity for level 1 person is going to be different from a level 10 person. But we want to get you to where we're, increasing your progression and getting you on up there where you're really getting into that level 10 zone. But intensity is the amount of effort you put into it. You can increase your intensity through strength training as well by adding more weight and putting more effort into the workout. Duration is, you can say distance or time. This means you're going to go for a 45-minute walk. Okay, that's duration. You're going to go longer with less intensity, right? And there is a time and place for each of these in everyone's program based on where they at. So again, for a person who hasn't worked out in forever, we may set some duration goals. All right, we're going to go for a 30-minute walk. You don't ever need to do more than 30 minutes, because if you can get to where you're doing 30 minutes and it's easy, then we're going to bump up the intensity a little bit to make that 30 minutes a little bit harder. So compared to a person who has been working out and can handle a little bit more intensity, we're going to push them intensity-wise to put more into less time. So I want you to understand, as we walk through this, there's going to be differences between each type of cardio, this would be considered your HIIT, high intense interval training. And this one here would be your steady state. Okay, that's where we're at. HIIT versus steady state. And I'll get into how each one is different and which one you should be doing based on your current level of activity. All right, so let's dive into it. So the first one I want to cover is the infamous steady state. Okay, again, as a competitive bodybuilder, we do use this one at times of calorie depletion. You know, we're not eating a lot of food. So the last thing we want to do is high intense because we're at a pretty lean state. Now, for you, a time in which you would probably only use this unless you're going to become an athlete is as a beginner. Okay. So for a beginner that comes to me that hasn't worked, let's say 60, 70 pounds overweight, maybe more, maybe less. You haven't worked out in years. So your body is what we consider deconditioned. Pretty much means you're out of shape. It's not a bad thing, guys. All right. Don't take anything personal I'm talking about here. But a beginner is considered deconditioned. So my recommendation would be a 15-minute walk. Because you're going to be huffing and puffing because you haven't done it in so long. Your muscles are going to fatigue. Your legs are going to fatigue. You're going to get tired and you're going to get achy. Okay. And we'll do this for about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how well you progress. Everybody progresses differently. Then we'll take it up to 20 to 25 minutes and get to where we're doing 30-minute walks. Because there's there's benefits to this. When you're walking, you're still using muscle. And especially when you're 60, 70 pounds overweight, there's a lot of stress on that lower body. So the muscles are having to work twice as hard as they normally do. So guess what's happening here? You're building lean muscle tissue at the same time at which you're building endurance at the same time. So you're doing two things at one time, which is awesome because by doing it this way, you're going to be able to progress to the high intense training a little bit faster as you move along here. So steady state would be more for your beginner, you're deconditioned. You're starting off at a little lower intensity. We're just going to start with a walk. Once you get used to the walk, we're going to go 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 25 to 30 minutes. And once you can successfully hit 30 minutes without feeling just totally exhausted and shocked, then we're going to move you over to our interval training. So let's dig into that. So this is our high intense interval training methodology. So once you're able to do 30 minutes, then you may get into a light jog. So you may do intervals based on time, not necessarily distance. Now, unless you're on a treadmill, unless you're going to a track, then you could do a little bit more on distance. But I recommend time because it's easier to manage than distance is going to be. So for instance, again, a beginner who's coming out of the steady state and going into the interval, obviously is going to start with lower intervals. So we're going to go to a 20-second jog, followed by a 40-second walk. And I like to keep it within minute times. So 20 plus 40 is 60. That makes 1 minute. Or we'll get higher into the 2 minutes. So you have a minute run, a minute walk. Again, the sky's the limit here, guys. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But you want to increase your intensity. So let's say that you've been doing this 3 to 4 weeks. The next time you bump it up, you're going to go 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, right? And then to bump it up even more, you'll go 20 seconds on, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. So you're increasing the intensity and reducing the rest period. Because once you get to that point, your body should be at a pretty good position to where it's utilizing oxygen better. And your heart rate is able to control the amount of oxygen in the body. So when you do hit that rest period, the heart rate's going to come down a little bit faster than when you were just actually walking. So again, understand like there's different components to this. There's different ways to approach this. There's different methods behind it, times behind it. But, I want you to just understand kind of how to increase your intensity over time. And again, I'm going to have sample workouts for you below you can print out. So just make sure you print those out, follow those week by week, and boom, you will get a long way. So now let's go to a little bit of some basic studies, right? So this is where the important part of this comes in. You go for a walk, you burn calories. At the end of the workout, you stop burning calories. Okay, so For a person who walks 30 minutes, let's say you burn 200 calories, that same person, as they progress, can burn the same 200 calories in 20 minutes through HIIT training. But, so this is going to be your interval training here, right? So sprint, walk, sprint, walk, sprint, walk, sprint, walk. And this is proven to increase your metabolism up to 38 hours after you have completed this workout. We call that EPOC, exercise post-oxygen consumption. So there's pretty much a recovery time in which your metabolism stays high after the workout. But again, it has to be intense in order for this to work properly, right? Because you're using muscle tissue at the same time, you're using the cardiovascular system, you're taxing it pretty hard as well. So those two combined are going to speed up that metabolism for 1 to 2 days after, right? That makes sense? All right, I hope so, guys. Hang in there. Now I want to go to give you an example of how each of these works based on people who do steady state and people who do high intense. And here's an example. You have steady state. We call this a long distance runner, right? They just run and run and run. They maintain a pace and they run for a long time. Marathon runners, right? And then you have your sprinters. Okay, now think of the Olympics, right? When you're watching the Olympics, you see a long distance runner, you see a skinny individual, not a lot of muscle tissue, right? Because their training patterns don't meet the needs of increased muscle along with their nutrition. Everything is designed around what they're trying to accomplish. Now your HIIT athletes, they sprint, walk, and they can actually take in 2 to 3 more times calories than your long distance runner. So for an example, we have a long distance male, again, male, has 20% body fat, right? Now, when you look at them, you wouldn't think that, but they're skinny guys. Now you have a sprinter who maintains 8 to 10% body fat, right? What is our goal right now? To have a lower body fat. And this is how we're going to do it, is make our way up to we're doing high intense training. All right. Now, once we get through this and can handle, you know, your sprints a little bit more tied into your routines, then we can add strength training into these routines. And the way you do this is you're just adding your lifts in with your cardio, your lifts in with your cardio. So an example of a basic HIIT routine that you could do at home could be squats, push up, mountain climb, and jumping jacks. Okay, you could do 30 seconds followed by a 30-second break. 30 seconds followed by a 30-second break. Again, you get the gist. Work on, work off, and you're going through each exercise for, I would say, 20 to 25 minutes. And that could be a workout for you that you could do, of course. And again, you're going to have some sample workouts to follow, but this is how you could set it up. You're doing your squats, you're going, take a break, 30 seconds, push-ups, you're going, mountain climbers, you're going, and jumping jacks, you're going. Got to keep it simple sometimes, but the more simple it is, the easier it is to follow, the more likely it is you are to get results. So this is how we're going to utilize cardiovascular to get us to where we want to be when it comes to our body fat. So the next thing we got to cover is how to fuel the body based on the workouts and the goals that we are trying to accomplish. So let's dig in to strategy number 3. I'll see you there.